Welcome back to my channel, everybody. If you know me, you know who I am. If you don't, I'm a React content creator. I like to react to different things, whether it be TikTok, YouTube, nonsense, or basketball, different basketball content, and basketball insight in general. So if you like basketball, I'm the guy for you. And if you like brain rot, I'm the guy for you. But today, I'm not going to be reacting. I got my second video essay that I'm going to be putting in front for you guys. Okay, if you guys go ahead and look at the vote tally, it was extremely close. Extremely close. But we had one vote that edged it out. Now, next week, I'll go ahead and post my video essay for Jordan versus LeBron and why I feel LeBron is better. But this week, 100 men versus one gorilla. And why the men are going to take that. So, meet the challenger. A full-grown silverback gorilla, one of nature's strongest primates. An adult male gorilla can weigh 300 to 400 pounds of pure muscle and is immensely powerful, capable of lifting over 1,800 pounds. A feat of strength with a bite force of around 1,300 psi. On the other side, we have 100 human men. Individually, much weaker, but together a formidable crowd. This bizarre hypothetical battle, which started on the internet as a meme, raises a curious question. How could a single gorilla possibly lose to 100 unarmed humans? It sounds like a video game boss fight, but experts in science actually have plenty to say. In today's breakdown, I'm going to tell you why they feel this way, and in a fight to the death, the 100 average guys could eventually take down the mighty ape. It's because of biology, teamwork, and a whole lot of stamina. So, first, let's start with gorilla raw power versus human numbers, okay? There's no denying the raw power of a silverback gorilla. The animal is often estimated to be 4 to 9 times stronger than a trained human male. Its upper body strength is immense. Think about it. A gorilla can throw with a force and even topple small trees. One wildlife specialist noted that an average silverback is probably around 4 to 5 times stronger than the average man who works out, meaning it could easily ragdoll any single human. In a one-on-one confrontation, the human wouldn't stand a chance. A gorilla blows can crush ribs or break limbs effortlessly, and it's built to absorb impacts too. Its bones are denser and skin thicker than ours. So at the start of a brawl, the gorilla would wreak havoc, serious injuries, or even instant death for the first men who get too close. In fact, experts agree some of the 100 men would be torn apart or critically injured extremely quickly. However, sheer power isn't everything in a prolonged fight. The gorilla's ability to eliminate humans is limited by physics and biology. It can only attack 1 or 2 people at a time, and each attack costs its precious energy. Meanwhile, the remaining men can keep coming. The limitation is critical, as one analyst puts it, it can only target 1 or 2 people at a time. That limitation is critical. If the humans accept losses and keep coming, their sheer volume overpowers the gorilla. In other words, the gorilla might win the opening battle, but the humans can win the war of attrition. Stamina and endurance. Sprinter gorilla versus marathon humans. The gorilla is essentially the sprinter in this matchup. While humans are the marathon runners, gorillas evolved for short, explosive bouts of activity, chasing off a rival or a brief burst of speed, not sustained endurance. In contrast, humans are built to excel in long-duration activities. Our species is often cited as one of the best endurance animals on the planet. We have adapted advantages like a high proportion of slow twitch muscle fibers, upright posture for efficient breathing, and an ability to sweat and cool off, all of which enable us to run or fight far longer than most animals. Gorilla stamina is a key weakness. A wildlife biologist with primate expertise explained that while gorillas are extremely strong, their stamina doesn't match up to human endurance. He notes a gorilla would tire out fairly quickly relative to humans. who have kind of maxed out our cardio endurance in exchange for the strength other apes have retained. In short, humans traded some raw strength for exceptional stamina in our evolution, and it shows. Scientific research comparing human and ape physiology backs this up. Chimps and gorillas mostly engage in short burst or intense exertion, whereas human involved features like a largely heart stroke volume and aerobic capacity that allow for sustained, moderate intensity activity. In a fight, this means after the first 1 of 2 minutes of mayhem, the gorilla's biggest muscles will start flooding with lactic acid. Its breathing will become labored and its strength and speed will drop off sharply. The humans, by contrast, can keep cycling in fresh fighters and catch their breath as needed, maintaining a more consistent level of effort. Over time, the endurance advantage heavily favors the 100 men. As primatologist Terry Stosowski put it, a coordinated group could prolong a battle and eventually wear a gorilla out.
With, a ton of power, all that upper body strength. You can see them here kind of just smashing people right and left. They've got incredible draw strength. But I think the sheer number of humans that they would be up against and the fact that humans could hopefully coordinate their behavior, tag team, take a little bit of a rest while the gorilla would just be going full steam the whole time would really put the advantage in for the humans.
Yeah.
It turns out that no matter how buff the gorilla is, it can't outrun biology. It will gas out like a heavyweight boxer after a few rounds, or after I decide to get up and go get a bag of chips because I'm a chubby little boy. While the humans still have plenty of gas in the tank, lungs and oxygen, big body, big oxygen. Just keep those two things in mind. We often imagine gorillas beating their chest and roaring with huge lungs, but when it comes to lung capacity and oxygen, a gorilla's advantages aren't as useful in a prolonged fight. In fact, a gorilla's massive muscles are a double-edged sword. Those muscles require enormous oxygen and energy, which is quickly depleted during continuous exertion. Humans, on the other hand, have evolved to be oxygen efficient over long periods. Our breathing and cardiovascular system can sustain activity for hours, a trait honed by millions of years of endurance, hunting, and foraging. One scientific comparison of great apes and humans found the human heart and lungs are adapted to pump more blood and oxygen during extended exercise, whereas gorillas and chimps are built for short bursts and then rest. What does this mean in our hypothetical death battle? After a minute or two of all-out fighting, the gorilla will be panting. Panting like crazy, okay? It will be trying to get enough air. Its chest will heave as it struggles to fuel those huge muscles. And if the men manage to grapple or dogpile the gorilla, more on the strategy soon, we'll get to that, they can make things even worse for the ape's airflow. Picture 10 plus people clinging to a gorilla. It can't expand its chest to breathe properly under the weight. As one analyst described, once the gorilla is swarmed and forced down, its chest can't expand. It struggles to breathe and exhaustion sets in. No matter how big your lungs are, you can't fight when you're literally being suffocated by sheer numbers. This is a major reason that gorilla's endurance will crash long before the collective endurance of 100 men. Gorilla behavior under stress: fight, flight, or freak out. Another often overlooked factor is the mindset and natural behavior of a gorilla. In a situation like this, gorillas are not bloodthirsty monsters that Hollywood seems to portray. In the wild, silverback gorillas do fight on occasion, typically against other male gorillas to defend their troop or territory, or against a predator like a leopard. But these confrontations are usually short, decisive, and meant to scare off the opponent rather than kill at all costs. Primatologists note that gorillas are not typically aggressive toward perceived outsiders, and they pick their battles carefully. They mainly use their impressive strength and ferocity as a deterrent. In fact, if faced with overwhelming odds, a gorilla's natural instinct is likely to flee, avoid the fight, rather than engage. Michelle Rodriguez, a primatologist, pointed out that in a ridiculous scenario of one gorilla versus 100 men, the gorilla would probably try to run away if it had to and find any escape route if possible. Wild animals generally don't fight to the death unless absolutely cornered. It's just too risky to their survival. So imagine our hypothetical gorilla's perspective. It finds itself encircled by a huge crowd of men. Its first reaction might be a bluff charge or a furious display to scare these threats off. Gorillas often pound their chests to intimidate their enemies. We understand. We've seen the movies. We've seen King Kong. But if the men hold their ground, the gorilla might lash out defensively, injuring a few people, all with the goal of opening a gap to escape. Remember, the gorilla doesn't understand this is a fight to the death or some twisted arena. It just sees danger and tries to end it. One way or another, if escape is possible, the gorilla will escape. But if the escape is impossible, say we're in an enclosed area, the gorilla will fight. But even then, it's fighting in a state of stress and fear, not calculated aggression. That means it might not fight optimally. It could be panic, making erratic changes, or focusing on eliminating a perceived leader while others tackle it from behind. Okay? Contrast with humans, who in this scenario know they're in a fight to the death and can mentally steel themselves for a coordinated attack. The humans can make a plan, the gorilla just reacts on instincts. And once the gorilla starts taking hits or feeling itself restrained by many hands, it may become confused or desperate. Emotions that only hurt its effectiveness further. Essentially, the gorilla lacks the strategic mindset for a prolonged group battle. Its instincts aren't tuned for battling dozens of foes at once. That gives the mentally prepared humans yet another edge. Injury and fatigue. The gorilla's breaking down. Now, I've talked to you guys about fatigue. Let's get to injuries. Gorillas are tough. Really tough. They have thick skin and dense muscle, which can cushion blows. They also seem to have a high pain tolerance. As one analyst noted, a blow that would incapacitate a man might barely register to a gorilla. This is why initial attacks on the gorilla, like a few guys trying to punch or kick it, may not slow it down at all. However, pain tolerance is not invincibility. A gorilla with a broken leg is still a gorilla that can't stand. Massive blood loss or crushed windpipe will incapacitate any animal, no matter how tough. The trick for 100 men is surviving long enough to inflict cumulative damage and overwhelm the gorilla. This would likely happen by sheer weight of numbers rather than each individual punch. If enough people can pile onto the gorilla, they can start to restrain the movement, pinning its arms, clinging to its legs, maybe a dozen men hanging off the creature's body. At that point, gorilla strength is partially neutralized. Even a powerhouse can't easily throw off 10 plus clinging bodies at once. In such a pileup, the gorilla's fighting capability plummets. It can't swing its arms freely or charge forward. It also begins to suffer physically in ways we can't ignore. Being dogpiled makes it hard to breathe. As I talked to you about earlier, its chest gets compressed. Several men might start landing blows to vulnerable spots. Imagine punches or gouges around the face or eyes, or applying chokeholds. The gorilla could endure some of this, but as more time passes, it would accumulate injuries, perhaps fractured ribs from struggling under weight, or joint damage as men twist his arms, etc. Crucially, the gorilla cannot recover once it's overwhelmed. Its muscles won't suddenly recharge. Once fatigued, they stay weak without rest, and any injuries it sustains will only make it weaker or distract it with pain. Humans, meanwhile, have the luxury of rotation. An injured man can crawl away or be dragged away while another takes his place. The group as a whole can absorb quite a lot of injury and still have fighters left, whereas the gorilla is just one being. Every injury it suffers directly reduces the single pull of strength it has. The battle is a war of attrition, and attrition heavily favors the side with 100 separate health bars, okay? Versus one big health bar. One expert, Ron Magel of Zoo Miami described a likely strategy: the men could swarm and envelope the gorilla and create a human straitjacket around it. In plain terms, that means dozens of arms and legs wrapped around the gorilla, locking up its limbs and even restricting its breathing. A gorilla cannot fight back if it can't move its arms or legs and can't get oxygen. Ultimately, a coordinated dog pile would lead to the gorilla being literally smothered under human bodies. As grim as that sounds, after a few minutes of struggle, the once mighty ape would be pinned and suffocating, unable to shake free due to exhaustion and the weight on top of it. At that point, the fight is effectively over. The gorilla will lose consciousness and sadly die from asphyxiation or cumulative trauma. The injury tolerance of the gorilla might allow it to ignore a punch here or there, but it cannot ignore having its airflow cut off or its body restrained to the point of collapse. It's worth noting this chilling fact: if the goal truly is to fight to the death, smothering the gorilla would actually be the safest way for the humans to finish the job. Bludgeoning it to death with bare hands would be extremely difficult. Its bones and muscles are too thick, and it would take dozens of strikes and risk more people getting hurt. But a pile-on chokehold exploits the gorilla's need to breathe, which is a vulnerability no strength can overcome. In a coordinated effort, as brutal as it is, the crowds of humans can quite literally squeeze the fight out of the gorilla. Let's break down the human advantages clearly. Numbers and surrounding. 100 people can encircle the gorilla. It can't watch all angles at once. While it attacks in one direction, men from the other side can jump on its back and grab its legs. The humans can come at the gorilla from every side and overwhelm its defenses. Endurance and fatigue management. Humans can fight in shifts. They can also withstand fighting longer due to better endurance, as we discussed. Groups of men can rotate so that no single person has to face the gorilla for too long, avoiding total exhaustion. The gorilla, by contrast, is fighting alone nonstop, which is why it tires out much faster. Collective courage or desperation. A single person might be terrified to charge a gorilla, with good reason, but a crowd can build a collective confidence. Psychologists note that in groups, people can rally each other and act boldly due to a shared identity and purpose. If all 100 men are fired up with the knowledge that they must bring this gorilla down to survive, they're more likely to overcome individual fear and dogpile the gorilla together. If the men don't work together and instead hesitate in fear, then the gorilla could pick them off. So unity is key. Strategy and learning. Humans can figure out what works and what doesn't during the fight. For instance, they may realize that they're trying to punch the gorilla in the torso. It just doesn't work. It's like punching a brick wall of muscle. So they switch to targeting its more sensitive areas or focusing on holding its limbs. They could communicate these ideas mid-battle, shouting, "grab his arms" or "go for the legs," to coordinate tactics. Every small success, like successfully getting a hold of an arm, can be capitalized on by the next guy. The gorilla isn't capable of such dynamic tactical shifts. It can't tell its left arm, "you focus on that guy, while I use my right arm to focus on that one." It just reacts in the moment. Taking turns, recovery. Humans can literally take turns being on the front line. The tag team approach means while the gorilla is fighting one man, 10 others can be catching their breath, and a fresh man can jump in while the tired one retreats. The result, the gorilla is dealing with opponents who often are relatively fresh, while itself grows more and more tired with each passing second. It's the equivalent of a marathon runner versus a sprinter forced to run a marathon. To put it bluntly, 100 coordinated humans function as a single organism with 100 limbs. If they move together, they can smother the gorilla like an avalanche. Even experts in wildlife behavior concede that sheer numbers and cooperation tilt the fight in favor of humans. As one summary of expert opinions noted, despite the gorilla's raw strength, a large enough group of people could lead the gorilla being overpowered through coordination and endurance. Why? Why 100 men versus a gorilla? Even if the one is a gorilla, like why? In this thought experiment, the gorilla is like a heavyweight boxer, incredibly strong, capable of delivering fight-ending blows, but only for a short time against a limited number of opponents at once. The 100 men are like an army of marathon runners, not very threatening individually, but they can outlast and outnumber the champion. The science behind it comes down to stamina, muscle physiology, and cooperative behavior. The gorilla would lose because it simply can't fight 100 fights in a row. Its muscles and lungs will give out, and the crowd will literally bury it. Its natural instincts would be to avoid the fight altogether. But if forced into it, biology ensures that it doesn't have the endurance to win. Meanwhile, the humans exploit every advantage they can, attack from all sides, wear the gorilla down with continuous pressure, and coordinate their efforts in ways that multiply their effectiveness. One expert described that by around the 3 to 5 minute mark of a battle, the gorilla would be exhausted. Around 3 to 5 minutes in, the gorilla would be exhausted. And it would be partially pinned under a heap of people breathing heavily and on the verge of collapse. We may not have fangs or super strength, but we have endurance, we have brains, and we got butt buddies to back us up. So, in a darkly comic sense, a fight of 100 versus 1 comes down to simple math and science. One gorilla has 2 arms and will get tired fast. 100 humans have 200 arms and can take turns. No matter how many protein shakes, no matter how much this gorilla benches, it cannot beat these odds. As the saying goes, talent wins fights, but teamwork and endurance wins wars. In this ultimate showdown, the gorilla's talons are mighty, but the team of 100 men wins the war of attrition every single time. This is according to our best understanding of biology. So, that is why I believe that if we had this hypothetical fight between 100 men, even if I'm thrown in there, my fat ass, okay? Even if I'm thrown in there, I may die. All right? But as long as these 100 men understand we're either all going to die or some of us are going to make it out, the men would win 10 times out of 10. One thing I really want to bring up as well at the end of this, now that we got to the conclusion of all this, is one thing that I keep seeing is because I stated experts, okay? Whenever I'm having these debates on TikTok, I bring up expert quotes, I talk about it, and I read a lot of shit in order to make this essay, all right? But every single time I'm having this debate on TikTok and shit, one thing that's continuously brought up is I'm just being skeptical. I'm just asking questions that the experts may not have asked. Maybe they're wrong. Okay. Skepticism is great. Healthy even. But let's be honest. Some of y'all ain't skeptical. You're being stubborn. Because these aren't random experts pulled off your Reddit page. Okay? These are primatologists, biologists, zookeepers, and veterinarians. People who have literally studied gorillas up close, sometimes for decades. They've seen these animals in distress. They've watched them fight. They've watched them get tired. They've watched them shit. And you think you're going to outthink them somehow. Someone who's been cleaning up their shit since the 90s? Whatever wild what-if question that you have, I'm pretty sure they asked themselves. What if the gorilla runs up a wall and does some parkour? What if the humans slip on banana peels? What if the gorilla learns Muay Thai in the middle of a fight? Any wild shit you probably sent to them, asked them, they probably considered that. They've already done the math, the biology, the ethology, and probably lost sleep over the ridiculous amount of questions they probably received online because of this debate. But at the end of the day, they still choose the humans. The biggest thing that people keep stating and the biggest thing that people keep quoting, well, if a guy sees another guy get ripped in half, then we're just gonna all break up and fight and run away. Like we see this all the time. It is true that humans also display the behavior of running away if they can to avoid a confrontation that involves death. But in this scenario, it's a fight to the death, is it not? You are in enclosed space, is it not? Okay? I talked about the gorilla wanting to run away. That's its first instinct immediately, is to run away. They're docile. They don't even want to be aggressive. And even if they have to be aggressive, they're still gonna, you gotta keep that in mind. Gorillas are not these Planet of the Apes gorillas you guys see. So even if it's in an enclosed space, they're not gonna really comprehend that immediately. They're gonna try to like push some guys out the way and try to get out the enclosed space as much as they can. That's already exerting energy. They're going to try to find a way out, and as it's doing that, that's already exerting energy. And by the time it comprehends there's no way out, it just exerted some energy. It may already be tired before the fight even begins. But if this is an enclosed space, the humans are going to comprehend that way before the gorilla does. And by the time the gorilla does, the humans are going to understand, I can't just run away. The gorilla's going to find me and hurt me. So we got to work together to take it down. Okay? I just find it weird that we're so questionable towards the experts, right? Because here's the kicker about all this. You guys trust experts all the time without even knowing it. When you start your car, you're trusting a group of engineers didn't wire it to explode like a Transformers film. When you eat your cereal, you're trusting that food scientists didn't lace your frosted flakes with arsenic. And when you brush your teeth, you're literally trusting the chemist to not melt your tongue off with fluoride lava. Okay? But suddenly, when his 15 PhDs saying a 400-pound gorilla would lose in a well-coordinated human dog pile, it's, nah, I've seen Planet of the Apes, I ain't buying it. That's not skepticism. That's cosplay denial. Skepticism is asking questions and changing your mind when presented with new, better evidence. I'm hoping that when you guys are listening to me rant, you're hearing the evidence I put to you, you're seeing the images I put on the screen, that you're able to look at that and go, okay, maybe a gorilla would lose in a fight. But if you are still on the side of gorilla, after everything that was stated, the logic that was put forth, the expert testimony that I put on the page, if you still are on the side of gorilla, then at that point, you're not being skeptical. You're just being delusional. And in this fight, delusion taps out way before a gorilla does. So I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Next week, I'm going to be uploading my video essay on why I feel LeBron is better than Jordan, because he just is. Like I said, I'm going to be doing these weekly. Pay attention to my YouTube posts. I will be posting there as far as what I'm going to have you guys vote on for the following 2 weeks. I'm going to be doing that every week. And I'm glad that you guys enjoyed me yapping for 30 fucking plus minutes. You enjoyed the last one. I feel like that one was just as long, if I'm not mistaken. And this one was pretty long as well. Until next time, friends, stay safe, stay smart, use your brain, and be okay with being wrong. The worst thing you can do in life is not be wrong. It's accept that you never can be. And that's all I got for you. Stay smooth.